Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Welcome to all of our members, subscribers, and viewers from all across the world. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Tonight, we're going to be talking about interesting developments internally when it comes to Netanyahu and his army. And we're also going to be talking about the latest updates when it comes to Lebanon and the region. We've been saying from day one, ever since the 7th of October attacks, about the misinformation and propaganda that has been spread primarily by Israel, but then later on endorsed by mainstream media and spread by mainstream media like wildfire. Unsubstantiated propaganda, claims about rapes and beheaded babies, and massacres against innocent civilians, as Israel claimed and as the mainstream media claimed as well. Soon after, we started to find out that Israel committed its massacres against its own civilians on the 7th of October to cover up the military defeat they faced from Hamas and from the Palestinian resistance. Then we started to have information about prior knowledge when it comes to other countries warning Israel, prior knowledge when it comes to certain soldiers in the Israeli army warning their commanders when it comes to the 7th of October. But now we have more revelations coming from the IDF that Benjamin Netanyahu and his office knew about the 7th of October before it happened. And guess what they did? Nothing. So we have this report coming from Ynet, one of the main newspapers in Israel, saying that IDF investigation, hours before the surprise attack, the Prime Minister's office was updated with extensive intelligence information. You're talking about Israel, you're not talking about any country. Israel is always on high alert. It's a military state. They had a division across Gaza. They have monitoring by the second, by land, by air, through satellites. They have spy devices everywhere. They have units only focusing on Gaza. So for the Prime Minister to know that something is about to happen from Gaza, that required immediate action to happen, and for him to send the relevant forces, at least to the areas surrounding Gaza, to anticipate what's going to happen. Instead, they chose not to do anything. Hamas took down the Gaza division in 2 hours. They kidnapped some commanders as well. And we had the 7th of October. But the fact that this is coming now from the IDF indicates that there is a massive problem internally inside of Israel, especially after Benjamin Netanyahu appointed Israel Katz as the new war minister instead of Yoav Gallant. Today we had footages of Israel Katz sitting with the IDF chief of staff. The man clearly doesn't know what he's saying. He is incompetent. He doesn't have the background to do his job. And at one point, even the IDF chief of staff was surprised by some of the statements that the defense minister made. For example, he said that one of the objectives of the war in Lebanon was to disarm Hezbollah. And that's not something declared. The only declared objective when it comes to Lebanon is for Israel to return its citizens back to the north safely. This is the official objective. You might have heard other statements like we want to destroy Hezbollah, want to dismantle Hezbollah, they need to go above the Litani River, and a couple of other things. But these were not declared objectives. We have 4 declared objectives in the war in total in Gaza and in Lebanon. 3 for Gaza, 1 for Lebanon. The 3 for Gaza were dismantling Hamas, destroying the Hamas, then returning the Israelis who are kidnapped in Gaza, then making sure Gaza doesn't pose a threat again. With Lebanon, there is only 1 declared objective, which is getting the Israelis back to the north from the places that they fled from due to the attacks of Hezbollah. And this report said throughout the night preceding the Hamas attack on October 7th, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office received a series of updates from the IDF and the intelligence community, which included a lot of information about alarming signs alongside reassuring signs gathered from the Gaza Strip from several sources. This is according to an IDF investigation which is being concluded these days and focuses on the events of the last day before Hamas invaded Israel. And they continued to speak about the details coming from the information, where they got it from the Aman, which is the Military Intelligence Directorate of Israel. We had other indications that were substantial, links between the Prime Minister and other intelligence agencies inside of Israel, and the fact that they knew several hours before. The official statement of Netanyahu's office was the fact that they only heard about the attacks when they actually happened at 6:27 a.m. after Hamas started to attack Israel. However, the investigation that is now being published by the IDF is saying the contrary. No, he knew hours before. This is alongside the warnings that came from soldiers on the ground, who at the time said that they told their commanders that there was an attack that's about to happen. There are suspicious massive movements from Gaza that are abnormal, and that they heard from other countries too that something might happen when it comes to Gaza. And when you're talking about Israel, they monitor things that happen with other countries. How can they not monitor what's happening in Gaza? This is a clear indication that although Hamas and the Palestinian resistance indeed planned for and executed the 7th of October attacks due to various reasons as a retaliation to Israel's ongoing aggression against the Palestinian people, the ethnic cleansing campaign, the suffering, the struggle, and the kidnapped Palestinians in Israeli prisons. But Israel did have some knowledge. It could have prevented it. And all of the claims that are coming from Benjamin Netanyahu are now being debunked by the IDF itself. The IDF are telling him that. And again, the most important bit about this report is the fact that the split is growing. The tensions are rising between Benjamin Netanyahu and the IDF, especially after he sacked Yoav Gallant, which leads me to the second thing that I wanted to talk to you about today. We are having talks about the General's Plan, what is labeled as the General's Plan in Gaza. The General's Plan in Israel means the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. Now, some people in Israel, including in the government, are denying that such a plan exists. They say, we're not implementing it. It's just a plan there, and it's not really intended to, expel the Palestinian people. However, we've had this report in Haaretz saying that the IDF gearing up to remain in Gaza until the end of 2025, at least. And in this article, they are saying, according to figures in the Israeli army, again, and by the way, this is something that is unprecedented in Israel, people in the army speaking and criticizing during the war. Usually you would have that with people who were previously in the army who are not actively serving, but now you have people actively serving, some of them on the basis of anonymity, others not so much, saying that, no, the government is actually lying when it comes to Gaza, and they are indeed intending to remain in Gaza. They are expanding the Netzarim axis, the infrastructure, the deliberate destruction of civilian properties in Gaza indicate that these people have a plan to remain in Gaza. And this also comes in line with the reports that we had and statements coming from Yoav Gallant, the sacked Israeli defense minister, or war minister to be more accurate, when he said that there is no security reason for Israeli soldiers to remain in Gaza, and the longer we stay there, the more we put their lives at risk. So it's unsubstantiated coming from Netanyahu to say that there is a security reason to remain in the Philadelphia corridor or in the Netzarim axis, because we have no need to remain there, and it's going to be very costly if we stay there, especially for the Israeli soldiers. This is a clear indication that the mindset when it comes to the Israeli government that is run by the messianic far-right Zion-Nazis is to actually settle in Gaza, to start squatting in Gaza like they're doing in the West Bank, and build properties over the bodies of the innocent Palestinian people. And this indication and this evidence is coming from the IDF itself, not just from certain observers or any analysts. That was the second thing that I wanted to talk to you about today. Then Israel is still committing massacres in Gaza. Today they had an attack on Al-Mawasi in Khan Yunis, where they again targeted innocent civilians, butchered children. Of course, this platform doesn't allow the publishing of images, as because some of them are harsh. We get it, but I posted it on my X account, some of the images that came today from Gaza, and the images are absolutely beyond comprehension. Children's brains out, bodies everywhere, pieces of butchered people, because they're targeting innocent civilians seeking shelter in refugee camps. And we're having more and more statements coming from doctors who served in Gaza, including one who had a speech at a parliamentary inquiry in Britain, talking about the fact that what happened in Gaza and what he saw in Gaza was worse than Hiroshima when it comes to the destruction, when it comes to the levels of destruction and the levels of atrocities. But Anthony Blinken is blaming everything on Hamas. Anthony Blinken has a statement today during which he said people are not talking enough about Hamas. Everyone is criticizing Israel. And he said, why don't they tell you that Hamas refused an offer that was given to them? What did you offer Hamas, Mr. Blinken? We offered them safe passage out. Safe passage out where? To occupied Palestine, where they were expelled from in 1948 and 1967? To their homes, to their original homes, because that's where the safe passage should reach, right? I mean, 72% of the Gazan population are refugees. Expelled from where? Ethnically cleansed from where? From what is now called Israel, from occupied Palestinian territories. So everyone in Gaza should have a safe passage back to their homes that they were expelled from in 1948 and 1967 occupied territories. These are the Gazan population, alongside the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, in Syria, in the West Bank, and the internal refugees who were displaced and are not allowed to go back to their villages that the Zionist terrorists ruined in 1948 and again in 1967. But of course, Anthony Blinken was talking about a safe passage out, We'll let you out of Gaza safely. Who do you think you're dealing with? I mean, is this guy delusional? He's saying that we need to criticize Hamas more. And it's Benjamin Netanyahu who rejected a ceasefire. For heaven's sake, the Israeli population are saying it's our prime minister causing the deaths of the Israelis who are kidnapped in Gaza because he refused so many ceasefires. Hamas offered you a ceasefire after they began the attack, telling you that, we tried to talk, you don't understand. But he didn't take it. The delegation team, the people closest to Netanyahu, how many times did they say that Benjamin Netanyahu always puts sticks in the wheels and finds things to make it impossible to reach a ceasefire? We get a positive vibe in the morning, and then we are given more conditions to make it impossible to reach a ceasefire. Banning the delegation from visiting countries, banning the head of the Mossad from visiting Qatar at one point, banning the delegation from going without a representative from the prime minister's office to make sure that the delegation implements everything that the prime minister wants to a T because he does not trust them. Not accepting a ceasefire that Hamas accepted, not accepting a ceasefire that Joe Biden said he accepted, and expanding. A narcissistic psychopath leading a genocidal entity, expanding. This is the person who we should be talking about, and this is the state that we should be talking about. And if we were to talk about any sort of safe passage, firstly, it should be for the Palestinians to go back to their lands, Palestine. And when it comes to the Zionists, it's safe passage out. Netanyahu and the war criminals, safe passage out. And everyone else can remain so long as they are happy with the concept of equal human rights. Simple. This is what everyone should be talking about. But hardly anyone is talking about that. And that's very unfortunate. Which leads me to the final thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which is Lebanon. Hezbollah targeted the Ministry of War today, which is called the Ministry of Defense of Israel. Hezbollah are reaching everywhere they want in Israel. We're having talks about a deal cooking in Lebanon. 2 weeks ago, we heard it was a week away. Biden said it might be just days away. And then we had another report saying, no, it's 2 weeks away. And today we're hearing again that, yeah, it might be 2 more weeks because we achieved the objectives. Netanyahu said a couple of days ago, there's nothing more than the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah that we can accomplish in Lebanon. But all of that could be to potentially delay, assuming that this would work, an Iranian response. Because again, the statements that are coming from Israel are very contradictory. One statement you'll hear about, yeah, ceasefire. Another statement, no, we're going to continue. What is it that you want exactly? So it's not clear. And previously, again, we heard positive vibes from everyone apart from Israel. Positive vibes usually from the United States administration. And usually these positive vibes come as what? Come to throw sands in the eyes of the people and buy the genocide entity more time to kill more people. Only buy Israel time. These are the positive vibes. And with a genocidal entity committing war crimes, you need concrete measures. Concrete measures meaning sanctions, a blockade, cutting off the aid of them, or at least anything that can make the genocidal power function. Of course, nothing like what they're doing to Gaza, capital punishment. We don't wish that on anyone. And stripping them of legitimacy and stripping the recognition of the state of Israel. And if they do not listen, take military action. This is what they do in all parts of the world. And again, when you talk about a state of terror, you can take a lot of actions against the state committing terror, mass-scale terror, committing a genocide, recklessly expanding, putting the whole world at risk because they're threatening to nuke other countries too. So this is the language that they understand. Anything apart from that is nothing that the Israeli leaders and the Israeli establishment will understand. Which leads me to the final thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Israel had certain attacks in Syria that were very close to Russian bases. The tensions between Russia and Israel have been increasing. We had a period where there was a level of good coordination between the Israeli leadership and Russia before the escalation in Syria and before Russia participated in Syria. After Russia started participating in Syria, the coordination continued. However, Israel tried to hinder and sabotage the relationship between Russia and Syria, especially with the 2018 fighter jet flying next to a military airplane that belongs to Russia that activated the Syrian air defense systems, later hitting the Russian airplane. Israel did that deliberately. Things started to deteriorate from that point onwards. But then we've had more attacks coming from Israel on certain locations where there are Russian troops and Russian forces and Russian bases. And now Russia is warning. Russia's unusual appeal, they're calling it in Israel, Russia's unusual appeal. Avoid attacks on our base in Syria. The Russian president's envoy to Syria denied that Hamim Air Force base is helping Hezbollah, because Israel is telling them that you're supporting Hezbollah. They're denying that. He claimed that Israel attacked the area in October and asked it to stop doing so. The IDF, we attacked the Syria-Lebanon border, access for transfer of ammunition to Hezbollah, documentation of the damage. Okay. So we're hearing more of a threat tone. And it came from Alexander Lavrentiev, Russian President Vladimir Putin's envoy to Syria. He denied in an interview with Sputnik news agency that Hamim Air Force Base is used to transfer Iranian weapons. And again, asking Israel to stop the attacks. I mean, I'm sure the tone was a little bit different when it comes to Russia, especially when it comes to that visit that happened a few weeks back. One interesting thing here, the Russian official said, Lavrentiev also stated that Israel's desire to receive guarantees that military shipments do not pass from Syria to Lebanon is outside the scope of Russia's military responsibility. Now, mind you, for those of you who are not aware, we're having more reports lately that Russia is trying to play a game with the United States and Israel in Lebanon. However, there are no indications of that. And again, when you talk about these things, you need to speak about the official statements that are coming. And like this report says, or indicates, Israel has been asking Russia for certain favors that they did not entertain, including stopping the weapons shipments coming from Syria to Hezbollah by saying it's outside of the scope of Russia's military responsibility. I mean, Russia participated in Syria primarily so that Syria doesn't fall into the US ziosphere, because that's where things were heading. And from their perspective, they can't lose that territory over there or the influence that they have in the region, especially after the attacks, the NATO aggressions in Libya, and of course, after the attacks in Iraq and in Afghanistan. They saw where things are going, and they were aware of the plans that are happening when it comes to the United States. And they view Israel as a state that belongs to the US, the 51st state. So now they're warning Israel, do not attack our bases in Syria. They didn't just threaten, or they didn't just ask, right, Israel to stop attacking bases in Syria. After Israel actually conducted an attack next to Russian airbase a few weeks back, and we reported at the time we spoke about it, Russia sent a warning to all Russian citizens in Israel, because don't forget, in the early 90s, there was a massive immigration, well, of many people who call themselves Jews, but, you know, many of them were Christians just looking to leave, to Israel. Israel wanted to make up the numbers. Israel is very obsessed about having a superior Jewish demographic balance when it comes to Palestine, because they were constantly aware of that. And as a matter of fact, between the Jordan River to the sea, Israel lost to the Jewish majority back in 2015. And now they lost it even further with the exodus of many Israelis outside of Israel. And people, that's it, ditching Zionism for good, especially with the recent polls that we're having, that the vast majority of people won't be returning to the places they left in the north or in the areas surrounding Gaza. And those of them who even considered to relocate to central Israel are now reconsidering their relocation to central Israel, because central Israel is now being bombarded regularly by Hezbollah. So Russia told them, Russia said, for all of the Russian citizens or dual nationals that originate from Russia or the previous Soviet Union, leave Israel so long as there's an opportunity to. When you usually say that to a country or to citizens in that country, this is a warning. This is a warning coming from the state, sending that warning to the state, receiving that warning. And it's not just any threat, it's a threat that could include certain actions being taken, certain measures being taken. And Israel wasn't ignorant to the fact that Russia has been supporting Iran very clearly. Air defense systems, weapons, Shoigu visiting back and forth, military warplanes landing in Iran in preparation for an Iranian attack or an Israeli attack on Iran, including reports that are not confirmed about advanced fighter jets coming from Russia to Iran. What we understand from this is that Russia is in the picture. And the fact that Russia is in the picture is a very important development. Hamas, several months back, after they saw that the United States is doing nothing but buy time for Israel and is actually a part of the problem, not actually a mediator or someone or a country that would be looking to reach a solution, they started asking for other conditions. So they started to say that we need other countries as mediators. And in particular, they mentioned Russia, they mentioned China, and they mentioned Turkey. Why? Because from their perspective, well, if the superpower standing next to Israel, we need superpowers that would, you know, have a better equation here. They have a memory of what Russia and China did in the beginning, calling for an immediate ceasefire, a ceasefire that was vetoed at the time. By who? By the United States, by Britain, by France, by Germany. All of these countries have blood on their hands. They're participants in the genocide. So they wanted them to enter, but we had no confirmation that they were entering at any point. However, when the situation intensified in Lebanon, where Russia has more influence than Gaza, Russia started to play a part. Now, this is in favor of the Palestinian side and of the Lebanese side. although we're having certain figures talking about Russia trying to apply a bit of pressure when it comes to Lebanon so that they can get a better deal when it comes to Ukraine. Again, all I'm talking is pure assumptions coming from certain analysts who are saying that, you know, the United States said if you can influence Hezbollah to an extent in Lebanon, then we have a new administration coming soon, and we would make it easier for you to solve the situation when it comes to Ukraine. However, on the ground, we don't have anything to support that. But in the meantime, the war is still ongoing, and the war is only intensifying. And these were the main things that I wanted to talk to you about. And welcome everyone to another live stream. And thank you so much for tuning in for another show. I'll take some of your questions here if we have anything. Glenn Hoxley, thank you so much for your super. Said Netanyahu is such an evil, slippery character. Netanyahu is indeed an evil, slippery character. What else did you say? Netanyahu is an evil, slippery character. He'll probably go to hell and take over. He has the features. All he'll talk the devil into invading him. He's special in that way. And thank you very much for that. Okay. Let's try and get some of your questions from the beginning as well. Bujar is saying, Mahmoud, by crushing USS aircraft carriers and destroyers, the Yemenis are giving Iran an absolute edge in case of US-Iran direct war. Iran's also building underground facilities. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we haven't seen all of it. Don't forget that. We haven't seen all of it when it comes to Yemen. And we hardly saw anything when it comes to Iran. But Iran did get hold of an Israeli-linked ship at one point. But there's a lot more that can be done. There's a lot more that can be done. And the United States knows its weak points. Like, don't take it for granted that the United States would go and just do whatever it wants. Even with the new neocon cabinet that Trump is preparing, and even with the warmongers inside of the US, and even with the Zionists inside the administration, trying to incite more hate and propaganda against Iran. Again, ignoring all that their country has done throughout history and to this day, and the fact that it's, de facto occupying most of the world with its 750 bases and approximately 1 million soldiers spread around the world in at least 80 countries. Some reports say 170 countries. So that's problematic. And you also said any news about the targeted USS Abraham Lincoln and the 2 other destroyers? Will the US soon announce their withdrawal, like with the USS Eisenhower plus US bases in Iraq and Syria? Well, the United States already declared that the USS Abraham Lincoln was on its way out, and by mid-November it will be out. This is what they said over a week ago. By mid to the end of November it will be. So it was probably already on the way out, but Ansarullah would target it anyway. And they confirmed that 2 destroyers were indeed hit, but they did not admit that Abraham Lincoln was hit. However, with Eisenhower, what they've done is it was hit, but then they said we need to send Eisenhower back to US shores for maintenance. Now, the maintenance thing is genuine, like, these aircraft carriers, they need a lot of maintenance. Sometimes maintenance can take a year. But by deploying most of them in the region at one point or in another point during the past year, they have taken them off the South China Sea. And the presence of the destroyers and of the aircraft carriers in the Gulf and in the region was very, very intense in the past period. But again, is it achieving any objectives? No. It's not intimidating anyone. It's therefore pure intimidation. It's not intimidating anyone. They sent an aircraft carrier before to the Mediterranean, took it back 2 months later, didn't intimidate, didn't stop anyone. Plus, after this massive show from Iran, well, it's clearly vulnerable. There is no denying that the hypersonic missiles that landed on the genocide bases inside of the genocide entity can definitely hit the US aircraft carriers as well. Now, of course, they will have some air defense systems, you know, some of the land air defense systems at some points will be deployed on some of these either destroyers, corvettes, or aircraft carriers, like Israel has an Iron Dome on the Sa'ar 6 corvette. The US does similar stuff, but they also have their own inbuilt air defense systems. But again, that's not going to be something that would work all the time, or for the majority part, really. It might not work whatsoever. And I hope that clarifies for Jimmy Eyes as well about the destroyers. Of course, we had the confirmation from Ansarullah, who said it was a successful hit, and the United States did not admit that the aircraft carrier was hit, but they did admit that 2 destroyers were targeted, according to official statements coming from the relevant spokespersons in the United States administration. Mystic Mother, do you know anything about Turkey cutting all ties with Israel? Listen, I heard these reports. So far, they haven't cut all ties with Israel. We heard certain statements coming. Any cutting of ties with Israel is welcome. I mean, it's late, but it's welcome. I think all these types of moves should have been done a very, very long time ago. And I don't think any human life can wait for any country to delay any actions that can stop war crimes for any reason on earth, security reasons, financial reasons, you know, international treaties, whatever it is. Human life is sacred. It's above that. And clearly, to many people in the world, it's sacred when it comes to some, but not the others. And with the Palestinian people, they're doing whatever they can to, you know, make it out as if it's nothing, you know, deny what's happening. But to Turkey, you know, they made a couple of statements in recent summits as well. We had the Arab League summit as well. But again, talk. You need concrete action. And you need to use all of that leverage before blood is spilled. So we will see if they cut everything. Don't forget, we had protests not long ago about weapons shipment, you know, in Turkey after it was in Egypt. And what's the excuse? International treaties? Up until when are you going to act like you respect international treaties when your enemies only use these international treaties against you, but go against every treaty possible? We should have international law so long as everyone abides by it. But we shouldn't have international law being implemented and enforced on the poor and the weak by the powerful and greedy. That's not international law. And, you know, that's stupidity if you continue to follow that path. It becomes ignorance. It becomes stupidity, insanity, as a matter of fact. Repeating the same thing and expecting different results. The definition of insanity. And unfortunately, the Arab and Muslim countries are no less shameful than the Western countries standing with Israel. And of course, there's a difference between certain countries and others, and some countries have better stances, but no one did enough to prevent the catastrophe that's happening in Gaza. Bujar again, Baqiri. Mahmoud, isn't Iran preparing to hit Satan's bunkers with heavy digging missiles? Look, I think if you want to understand where things are going with Iran, always contextualize. I think it's very normal for people to contextualize and to read the patterns of how things are to establish information as close as possible to reality from different sources, but have an independent reading. Of course, don't fall into the propaganda. What did Iran do? Iran had an attack back in April against all odds. They hit certain locations, but clearly there was an advance warning there. In October, it wasn't like that. The US, by coincidence, by certain monitoring, told Israel there are suspicious movements in Iran based on our satellite imagery, and Israel had hardly any minutes, max, hours after this warning. But Iran wasn't saying anything. They were just preparing and hitting. So the first one was like a light smack, and second one was a proper punch. The third one could knock them out, make them unconscious for a while. So I think the Operation True Promise 3 is going to be heavy. It's not going to be the heaviest that Iran can do, no, because Iran does things in a very methodical approach, and they take things step by step. They're very, very calculated. So I think it will be more intense, and they will target them with whatever they need to target them with to force them to at least reach a ceasefire. Because what is everyone asking for? Ceasefire. And Turkish truthers said that Turkey officially cut all ties with Israel and the announcement of Erdogan. Let's look into that quickly. Yes, Erdogan said that 9 hours ago. Let's have a look. Turkey severes all relations with Israel, says Erdogan. Turkey has severed all ties with Israel. Turkish President Recep Erdogan announced on Wednesday. Erdogan made the comments to journalists aboard his plane following visits to Saudi Arabia and Azerbaijan. The government of the Republic of Turkey, under the leadership of Tayyip Erdogan, will not continue to develop relations with Israel. Our ruling coalition is resolute in its decision to cut ties with Israel, and we will maintain this stance in the future as well. Good progress. We, as the Republic of Turkey and its government, have currently severed all actions with Israel, all relations with Israel. Okay, despite imposing a trade embargo on Israel, Ankara continues to maintain diplomatic relations with the country. Saying Turkish diplomatic missions in Tel Aviv remain open and operational. Israel evacuated the embassy in Ankara. Yes, they did. And Erdogan also said that Turkey would do everything in its power to hold the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accountable for his actions in Gaza, which international human rights groups have described as genocide. Okay. I mean, yeah, again, progress, but, you know, we need things to be effective. I mean, we need more, like I said, I think with this, we need concrete action. Of course, any progress is good progress, but you need certain actions to be taken that will actually stop this genocide entity. Stephen Burrows, thank you. And Sean Hurl as well. I said, thank you very much for sharing info. True Promise 3, Iran soon, Iran. And Shambili official. Salam Mahmoud, is the Rothschilds the reason that why Zions are a protected class that can get away with all crimes and the West are being blackmailed? And also the virus, thank you. Well, with regard to the Rothschilds, they have been the main funding family for the state of Israel. They supported many projects in Israel. They are a very respected family in Israel. Many institutions, streets, hospitals, organizations are named after the Rothschilds. Some of their family members are buried in very important locations in Israel. So there is no denying that there is a very big link, and it's very known. It's very well known. However, the protected class thing, this is an interesting point here. I think, do you know what makes someone or something or anything a protected class? People. You know, we have a saying in Arabic, you know, oh Pharaoh, who made you a Pharaoh? People. It's people's perception that make anyone a protected class or beyond criticism or an idol and all of that. It's people's perception. Now, how is that perception made? It's made by, to a large extent, continued propaganda and a systematic approach when it comes to indoctrinating people. Infiltration of religions and religious groups and ideologies and constant brainwashing and movies and music and everything, right? To brainwash people to a level where they would think that a certain group is a protected people. There is no protected class. No one is above criticism. No person on earth is above criticism. No one. This protected thing is the garbage that you've been fed by the Western narration of history and World War II and to this day they're hiding the fact that there's a genocide. So if you think about it for 1 second, if now people have the audacity to deny a genocide being live streamed to everyone, when we have internet and social media and everything, then what did they lie about 100 years ago? Wow. What did they lie about 100 years ago? If they're lying so much now and still making some people as if they're above and beyond criticism, what did they lie about before? No one is in fact a protected class. It's ignorant people's perception who are brainwashed to a level where they would make them a protected class, makes them feel like that. Now, mind you, it comes with scary stuff too. Authoritarian governments acting in 1984 Orwellian style with Big Brother and thought police intimidating people, delegitimizing legit resistance, scaring people off from supporting what's right, blaming people and labeling them for criticizing a genocidal entity with false accusations, false descriptions that are made up, like the history that they made up and the pseudo narrative that they constantly push. No one is a protected class. Remove that from your head. No one is above criticism, and no matter how much they will try and intimidate, it will not work. It will only work on the people who are already susceptible to be manipulated and who have a level of cowardice. It will never work with any free person on earth with an ounce of honor, human dignity, and moral consistency, a functioning moral compass, and a pair of eyes that can see and ears that can hear and listen and absorb. It's not going to work. So I think it's the perception that we need to change. And once that perception is changed, and it is changing to a very large extent globally, I think we will start seeing things differently. Julius is saying, Mahmoud, is it true that the war in Sham starts a war and all armies are there, Damascus go and be destroyed, and then Mahdi comes? All of these things that you mentioned are based on eschatological matters that have no origin in Islam as a religion, unless you, of course, follow any other religion. We had many cases in history where many of these narrations that, again, have no origin in the religion of Islam itself or in the Quran, coming up when there are big catastrophes, people start telling you, oh, the end of times is coming, this person is coming, that person is coming. We had all of the prophets, and we had the final prophet, Muhammad, peace be upon him. The message is clear, and we were given what's right and what's wrong and what to follow and what not to follow. And I think when it comes to the current events, the way to deal with them proactively is to view them as they are, put people to account, call for a change, act in the way we can, and not wait on any fictional figures to come and save us. And I hope that elaborates. And Tom McIntosh, he said, Mahmoud, what about Haaretz editorial about ethnic cleansing of North Gaza? The Haaretz article about North Gaza came as a confirmation coming from certain figures in the Israeli army saying that Israel is indeed planning to remain in Gaza and is actually enforcing a campaign of ethnic cleansing. So they are going beyond what's needed. For example, they gave an example in the Axis of Netzarim, and they also are destroying the north and forcing everyone out of the north, including systematic starvation and mass killing. You know, you had areas in the north that had 500,000 people in them, now only 20,000. Like I said, they are killing people everywhere, left, right, and center. Like I said, all it takes is to just, be on a couple of social media outlets to see what's happening in Gaza. Doesn't take a lot. So it's coming as criticism. And like I said before, this indicates that there is a very big difference of opinion when it comes to Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli army. Jimmy, when is Russia-Iran going to sign the defense agreement? Do you think Iran may wait until that happens before they strike back at Israel? I think, well, it's not that I think. They told us an announcement is coming soon. So Russia said that an important agreement announcement is coming soon. We haven't seen it yet. They haven't given a deadline. They haven't given timeframes. So that hasn't been confirmed. The interesting part is the second part that you said, is Iran waiting for that to happen before they strike back at Israel? That could be a consideration. Listen, we can sit here and talk as much as possible. And I mean, I try to kind of observe and be, as transparent, as truthful as possible when it comes to what's happening, because of all of the propaganda and lies that are being spread constantly. But when it comes to the countries involved, I think all of us need to understand and appreciate that they will do what they see fit to them in their own time, because they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, they know the prospects of something bigger happening. They know how responsible they are for their own population first and foremost, and then other nations too. All of these things are calculated. And so far, I believe that Iran took extremely wise decisions. I mean, Iran are masters at the global chess game, if you want to call it a chess game. They have really mastered it. They've used leverage to their side. They've used their strength in a very responsible manner. They did not emotionally respond. They did not overreact. They did not underreact. I mean, there is an argument that some people say they might have underreacted or delayed it too much. But again, that's part of the game. And the harsh truth is that no one was able to stop the genocide in Gaza. But those who participated potentially stopped something far bigger. This is what we need to understand, and have created a new equation when it comes to Israel and its backers. And Iran is at the forefront of that. So it might be a case of them waiting potentially to have this defense pact with Russia, or it might be a case of, they already have what they need, but they are waiting on certain developments to come to fruition. Terry, Mahmoud, do you think any purpose was served by the PIJ releasing a video of the Russian hostage today? He's an Israeli hostage, by the way. He's an Israeli prisoner of war, to be more accurate. But like all Israelis, almost all of them are dual nationals. Shows you how much authenticity you have there when it comes to this fake pseudo entity based on imposters. But anyway, this guy, they released an image of a video of him before, and now they released another video. And I think that video is important. That's psychological warfare against your enemy. This man came up with a video and he said that I've been here for a year. I've been targeted many times. I almost died. We're suffering from the blockade. And it's a level of psychological warfare against Israel. And listen, in many cases, you see some of these people speak with passion against their government. Of course, you can't rule out an influence on the people holding them. It's like they are, prisoners of war at the end of the day. It's not like there's no comparison, though, between the Palestinian resistance and Israel. The Palestinian resistance treats them nicely with respect, as they are ordered to by their faith, That's why you had so much good feedback coming from the Israelis who left Gaza. And Israel went on a massive campaign to try and shut them down. Israel called the first press conference of Yocheved Lifshitz, the lady who was released on humanitarian basis from Hamas for no return. They just asked Israel, take her. She's, it was probably a mistake kidnapping her because she was too old. Israel said no. Twice. They refused. They ended up giving her to Egypt. So she had a press conference. Israel called the press conference a Hasbara terror attack. Why? Because she said the truth. She said they were good. They treated me nicely. They respected me. They fed us. They took care of the hygiene, women's hygiene. They give me medicine. Doctors were next to me. I had people who were wounded, fighters protecting me. And every good thing you want to hear about someone imprisoning someone. And of course, that's not what Israel wants you to hear. And that's not what the mainstream garbage poison wants you to hear. Every single mainstream media out there. So by them releasing that, and the reason I said that is the fact that there is a big difference between the Israelis held in Gaza and the Palestinians kidnapped in Israeli prisons. There's a massive difference, incomparable. The Palestinian resistance, they treat them like they should. Of course, there's a limit, like when Israel starts to kind of kill everyone just to have a rescue operation, of course, they're going to have more difficult conditions. Like some of the Israelis who are kidnapped in Gaza were actually in houses, in flats. But Israel started to destroy everything, so they had to put them on. And then they killed 400 Palestinians to rescue 3 Israelis, killing 4 Israelis simultaneously. And I think it has an effect, but I'm not sure to what level it's going to change things when it comes to Israel. Netanyahu has been doing whatever he wants all this time, and he is continuing. And Chocolate Pudding and Irene Z, thank you so much. Chocolate Pudding saying, is Hizb holding back in anticipation for U.S. intervention? No, Hezbollah is not holding back. Hezbollah is increasing. The more we have when it comes to talks about a ceasefire, Hezbollah escalates. So Hezbollah know that the United States is in it with Israel. They do not have any sort of doubt that the United States is Israel and Israel is the United States. Some Arabs are fooled by differences and what have you. Hezbollah not. And Irene Z, thank you so much. Says, salam, brother. May Allah bless you. And you said you're in agreement with me, apart from some of the things that I mentioned about the Imam Mahdi and yeah, of course, we might have disagreements, not a problem whatsoever. And the main thing is, of course, have mutual respect and agree to disagree. I have my reasons and I have my proof and evidence to support what I believe in, but I totally respect, your beliefs and your approach alongside everyone else, so long as we're all, peaceful and respect each other. So, but thank you so much for that. Much appreciated. And HS as well, thank you so much. Said, dude is one of the best independent journalists on YouTube. Wow. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for your kind support. Much appreciated. Let's go take a couple of more questions before we wrap up. Sam's saying, hi, brother Mahmoud, do you have any comments on the Zionist appointees by Donald Trump and his cabinet? How can it affect Israel's occupation pattern? Look, we spoke about Donald Trump before. Donald Trump is a man who got over 100 million, 100 million at least from Miriam Edelson. That's the declared. money that he got from a Zionist who supports Benjamin Netanyahu. Her husband he was like the main patron of Benjamin Netanyahu, supporting his media, supporting him, supporting his campaigns. And these people don't give money for no reason. They want favors in return. So it's not surprising. I mean, you know, I've been surprised by people who were like fooled by this approach of Donald Trump. Donald Trump just recently, you know, started to act less anti-Islam than before, right? Donald Trump was spewing proper Islamophobic statements. Like, what did you forget? His Muslim ban and his previous statements about Islam, and he's still talking about jihadis now, and it's typical garbage, repeating it time after time, threatening to expel people who support Palestine. What is that? But yeah, many people are fooled by him. And like I said, I mean, when it comes to politics, you look for the money. These people do not support someone without, you know, imagine someone giving you 100 million, but what are they going to give it to you? Because of your, like we say, the blue eyes and the blonde hair? No, they would want something. They would want something in return. So now he's serving them. Profound, pro-genocide maniacs in his cabinet. So much for, you know, anti-war. So he's returning the favor. He's paying them back. And also, Bujar is saying, how would US NATO even approach Iran? They realize how cheap targets their Mach 1-2 flying are. All their jet bombers and fighters are useless, no capacity to approach anything near Iran. I think the United States and NATO know their strengths and weaknesses. I think the United States is unable to form a coalition against Iran for the sake of Israel. That's why the Zionist lobby, with its fronts in the United States, including Donald Trump himself, are spewing venom against Iran, as if they are somehow trying to assassinate Trump. When we saw who tried to assassinate Trump. But they couldn't even have a coalition in the Red Sea. Ended up with poor old little Britain and America. And the United States running this failed genocide coalition. How are they going to have a coalition against Iran? And again, all of the talk that you're hearing from Western leaders, pure hypocrisy and degeneracy and depravity, whatever you want to call it. Telling Iran not to retaliate and saying Israel has the right to defend itself. The typical garbage, you know. But again, Iran doesn't care about that. Iran does what's right from a political perspective, from an action perspective. And I think the United States and NATO, I mean, they learned their lessons in Afghanistan and Iraq, haven't they? Taliban is there, you know. They're no longer considered terrorists, you know. They took them off because Taliban forced them to. Iraq still poses a security threat. You have regular attacks on Israel, which is a U.S. State, basically. So that didn't work, did it? Unless, of course, that wasn't the aim, you know. The money making and the military-industrial complex and the poppies in Afghanistan, in CIA planes, and. But yeah, it's difficult for them to do something in Iran. And they know that. They know that things are changing, and they have been changing for a very long time. It's not like something that happened all at once. It's something that has been built with time by Iran and their relationship with Russia and China. It's a relationship that has developed, that started to be more nurtured with time, and they can act whatever they like. I mean, the United States and NATO. But it simply isn't going to work. It's not going to work. The only thing that they can do now, I think, is, have some sort of, reasonability, assuming that there is anyone reasonable within those administrations, and prevent further escalations. And it's not like I'm putting faith in anyone anywhere, really, in any political party or whatever it is. But if there are certain people with common sense to press to stop it. And how do you press to stop it with those people in power? Because they have a lot of responsibility. It's taking concrete measures that can make a change, even if that means you might have to pay a price. Because if everyone thinks, well, I'm not going to do it because I'm not willing to pay a price, and sometimes the price is non-existent, by the way. The price is not there. They just scare people off. But when it comes to the people in power, well, we know who's supporting who, right? And you can make certain decisions to prevent further escalation. So it doesn't look like they're going down that way. Because if they wanted to make a genuine change, you would see concrete actions. And we haven't seen concrete actions apart from who? Apart from the resistance fronts and apart from Iran. At a state or operational level acting against a genocidal entity. Apart from that, every single free person on earth, every single person with an ounce of morality, an ounce of dignity, who has passion, actual passion for equal human rights, and not just, sitting there lecturing, who actually practice, who post, who share knowledge and share common sense, call for justice. And yeah, but I mean, based on what's happening now, it looks like things are going to potentially escalate even further, I'm afraid to say, because based on the pattern that we saw so much, it doesn't look like you're going to have a proper solution. And I assume that even if we would have a temporary solution, for example, like what would be labeled as a ceasefire, I don't think it will be very long lasting. So long as this man is in power in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. And we will wrap it up there. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in for another show. Chocolate Pudding, HS, Irene Z, and Chocolate Pudding again, thank you. The Virus, Shambly, Sean Hurl, Stephen Burrows, Glenn Hoxley. Thank you very much for your support, much appreciated. Everyone else, thank you so much for your contribution and for your kind and wonderful comments. And as usual, I apologize, of course, if I didn't reach all of them just because of the time limit. I'll hopefully be with you with another video and a live stream tomorrow. A video will follow this, hopefully. Apart from that, again, thank you for tuning in. Stay blessed, everyone. Take care, and I will see you soon in the next video.